Right on schedule, head coach of Syracuse, Jim Boeheim, is with us. We're going to ask him to open up with a statement about getting into the second round, maybe his thoughts on the tournament, and then we'll go to questions. Jim?
Well, I'm tremendously pleased the way we played the second half. We did a tremendous job on the boards, which has been a weakness of ours this year. I thought that was a huge key in terms of winning the game, and I just thought offensively we settled down the second half and got some good looks. Dayton's a very good basketball team. They've had a good year, a really good year, and they played in a very, very tough conference, and they won it. So it was a really good win, and we're thrilled to move on.
Right here.
Jim Thomas, St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Coach, what are some of the challenges with playing not only a team that you're relatively unfamiliar with, but also with a sharp turnaround?
Well, we know them. It doesn't matter if they're a name or not. We know as much about them as we would know about any team in the country. We've seen 10, 15 different game tapes on them prior to this. We had already had one assistant looking at those and breaking those down. So we had their entire season, especially their zone offensive work, which is what we're concerned about, on tape before last night. So we're as familiar with them as we are with any team we'll play in terms of what they do. Obviously, watching them in person, I think the biggest thing was you were just impressed with the talent level of their players. I think Michigan State's a great team. I think they played a tremendous game offensively yesterday. I've seen Michigan State a few times this year. I thought they were sharp on offense. I thought they shot the ball well. Costello was, 9 for 10 in the post. I thought offensively they played a great game. But Middle Tennessee, every time Michigan answered, and they answered about 5 different times during the game where it was at 8, down to 2, back to 8, down to 4, back to 8. They answered every single time. And that's not easy to do against a team like Michigan State. I just thought they played a fabulous game. It was as well played game as I watched all the games the last 2 days, and it was as well played a game as I've seen in the tournament. And when you came away from the game, there was no doubt that you felt on that particular game the best team won. It was from beginning to end, they played the best.
On the right-hand side, Jim.
Jim, 18 rebounds coming from Tyler Roberson. Just what you can say about how he can be a difference maker in some of those big games he's had this year, especially when you needed him most.
Well, we need him to do that. Obviously, that's why I was so disappointed in him at a couple different stages of this season, and it's why, and he knows this. That's why what I said was right, and he deserved it because he's letting himself down and the team down when he doesn't play like that. He's not going to get 18 rebounds every game, but he can't get 2 or 4. We're not going to be successful with that. We don't expect him to get 18. It just things went that way, but we need him to be active and to be effective on defense, on offense, and especially rebounding the basketball. And that's why, there's cause for me to have to get some message through to him. And we need him to perform at that level. I love the kid, but we need him to perform at that level. And when he doesn't, it makes it hard for us to win.
Left-hand side, Jim.
Coach Mark Tracy from the New York Times. With all due respect to them, I think it's safe to say most people did not see Middle Tennessee State advancing past yesterday's game. All credit to them, they did, and they fully deserved it. I wanted to go back. You mentioned you had an assistant looking at Middle Tennessee State even before that game. I was wondering if you could take me through the process. You get your bid, you see that Michigan State is playing in the game that dictates your next opponent, but you still put an assistant on Middle Tennessee State.
Yeah, I put an assistant on Michigan State and on Middle Tennessee. Adrian Autry was responsible for them. Jerry McNamara was responsible for Michigan State. I didn't even think about the game, to be honest with you. I didn't even think about it the whole week. I didn't even give it a thought. You know, I'd obviously have seen Michigan State, so I knew, you know, what they were, but I didn't think about it until the end of the game. You know, I watched the game, so that was, but those games don't help us that much because it's just doesn't help us. Scouting, we don't look at most games people play. We only look at certain games, and we only need to know certain things. So, but I guess to get to what your question is, we come in and both guys prepare like we're going to play that team up until the game's over, and then we all focus on what Middle Tennessee does. But it was clear to me, I had talked to a pro scout, and he had told me, and some people had told him, that this was a very, very good team. And when you watch them play, it's pretty obvious that they're a very, very good team. My assistant told me the one stretch, and I'm not positive on this, but I think that they lost 3 out of 4 games when the shooter didn't play. You know, when he didn't play, I think they lost 3 games. And it'd be like if Mike didn't play for us, we'd lose 3 out of 4. Well, we'd probably lose all 4. But, you know, they're a very good team. I mean, I'm not, you know, if they were bad, I'd be saying that too. Or if they were lucky yesterday, I'd be saying the same thing. But the truth is that they're a really, really good offensive team. I didn't see any weaknesses on that team. They didn't turn it over. They made good plays when they had to. They made shots when they had to. And they did it multiple times. Michigan State came at them multiple times. It wasn't like they were ahead the whole game and Michigan State made a little run. They answered 5 or 6 times, and different guy answered almost every time. You know, it was really a great game to watch. I wouldn't have liked to have been coaching against them, but it was a great game to watch. All the games I've watched in the tournament, and I've watched every one you can watch. That was the best game. You know.
On the right-hand side, standing.
You know, you said you watched Michigan State 10 times, Dayton 8 times. I'm curious if at all this season you've seen Middle Tennessee and what you kind of know about their program and Kermit and all, you know, just about it.
I didn't watch Middle Tennessee this year. They weren't on television. It's hard to watch somebody. I'm not going down there. But I watched them enough yesterday and in tapes last night to know as much about them as I need to know. I know too much about them, in fact.
Jim, Dan Wolken, USA Today. Malik Richardson committed to you really early. What did you like about him, you know, that young, and what's impressed you about him this season?
Well, the good players do commit early usually, and he was a shooter. You know, I mean, that was the thing. He could shoot the ball. He always has shot the ball. It's like his mother says, Malik, I can shoot the ball. If he was as tough as his mother, he'd really be good, but that's another story. But, you know, he always could score. His weakness always was, you know, really putting the ball on the floor. And that's the one thing he's worked on this year with Jerry, you know, is the ability to put the ball on the floor and make plays. And that's where he's made a big growth jump. And next year he'll be playing guard all the time, not small forward, and he'll have an opportunity to even get better. But he's a big-time shooter. He's a lot of confidence in himself on offense, and he's been good right from the jump, right from the first game. He's been probably, you could say, our most consistent player, shooter, this year. I think the 2 freshmen have been tremendously consistent. Tyler Lydon and Malachi Tyler Lydon, the last 12, 14 games, probably averaged 14 points a game. Once he got over the fact that he's supposed to shoot, we want him to shoot. You know, he's the 2 freshmen have played great for us this year. I mean, there's no question about that. They've been tremendous.
Standing up on the right, Jim.
Matt Schneidman from the Daily Orange. Jim, do you remember a team this year that threw as many defenses at you as Middle Tennessee did against Michigan State yesterday?
You know, they play a couple different combination zones and a very good man-to-man. They switch a lot and they hedge. They do different things in their defense. But, you know, we see some of that in the league, but not. There's not as many teams. The teams haven't really played us much zone this year. We've seen a little bit, but we practice against a pretty good zone every day. So I think we'll be prepared for that.
Right here in the middle.
Matt Park from Syracuse IMG. Coach, if I did the math properly, this is the 100th NCAA tournament game in the history of the program, and you've been around for almost all of those. Do you have it's Middle Tennessee's 11th. Do you have a reflection on what it was like back then when this wasn't routine?
Well, I mean, the tournament in the beginning was completely different. It was a different animal. Going back to when I played, I don't think half the people in Syracuse didn't know we were in the tournament until we got to the regional finals. So it was just a different world. And then even early in coaching, it just was different. And the tournament has unfortunately become the season, for especially the good teams. If you're a top 20 team, you think you should get to the Final Four. In fact, top 30 or something. Coaches are getting fired every day now because they don't get their team to the, Sweet 16 or something. I mean, it's everything hinges on, especially the good teams, hinges on what you do in the tournament. And it's just the way it's the reality. I mean, there's nothing we're going to do to change it. I don't think it's right, but it's the way it is because you get in a tournament, and now more than ever, that you can be a really good team, have a great season, and you run into a hot team, and you're going home. I mean, I think 13 out of 24, 11 out of 24 were upsets, I guess, so-called upsets yesterday, or the worst team won, the supposedly worst team won. It's so even now that when you get in, it just, 2 years ago we had a really good team. We played great the whole year. I think we won 25 straight games maybe, if I'm not mistaken. But we did lose to Boston College, so obviously we could lose. We played a very good Dayton team. We went 0 for 12 from the 3, and we made one shot outside of the layup in the game. We lost by 2 points, and you think it was the end of the world. It's just the way it is. It's just the way college basketball is. And not to take anything away from Dayton, they're a very good team. But when you miss shots, it's hard to win in this tournament. Very hard.
We have 8 minutes to go in this session. 2 questions are up. Go.
Joe Rexrow, Detroit Free Press. Jim, you mentioned Middle Tennessee's zone offense, which obviously you didn't get to see yesterday. From what you have seen, how do they match up with what you do?
They played against a lot of zone this year. A lot of teams zoned them for good reason. They're hard to guard, but they're good against the zone. That's the one point I would make. There's a lot of times you'll see a team that's really good against a man-to-man. They drive a lot, and that's what they can do. And then they're not good against the zone. This team's very good against the zone. They pass the ball well. They multiple shooters. They rebound it well. They've got good post players offensively. So this is a difficult team. If I played both defenses, it'd be a toss-up which one I would play. Luckily, I don't have to make those decisions.
Back on the right.
Greg Mullen, ESPN coach. Back in 1991, you went through something that Coach Izzo went through yesterday.
Yeah, we were the first one. We lost to a good Richmond team in Washington, D.C., and they had the building, obviously, the fans. We hadn't been playing great at the end of the year. We had a lot of issues, and we just didn't play very well. And, it's not a good feeling, but it's there's not much you can say about it. It's very difficult when you lose that game.
What would you tell Coach Izzo? Because he looked like he'd been run over by a bus yesterday.
Well, Tom is a good friend of mine. I'm proud to say that. He's one of the best coaches I've ever seen or coached against, and not just tournament. He's just a great coach. But and he's been incredible in the tournament. He usually finds a way to win, even when he's in a tough game like that. But that team just played. They just played great. I mean, Michigan State came back at them time and time again, and there's not much you can say. I mean, it's you live with that loss for a long time. that's what you do when you lose in this tournament. I've lost more than a few games, but I finally realized that everybody loses in this tournament. Every coach, every team, every program, somewhere along the line, you're going to lose in one of those games, and it's not easy. But it's not easy when you lose when you're an underdog either, in this tournament, because you're done. So it's very difficult.
Right here at the center.
Coach Aldo Amato of the Daily News Journal. Was there a particular player that stuck out to you on tape yesterday for Middle Tennessee? I know Giddy Potts is mentioned.
Well, the shooters always, for us, it's always the shooters, that we worry about. And he's as good a shooter as I've seen. I mean, I watched him shoot. You really think it's a mistake if he misses. I mean, something happened, because even the tough shots he takes are almost go in. I think about him, but they don't have a spot that's like a weak spot, because to me, I look at teams and we try to look for a weak offensive spot that our zone can not worry about too much. They can score at all 5 positions. The 5 guys on that team can score 20 points. They probably have. I don't have to even look at it, but they're all capable of scoring 20, 25 points. And those are the teams that, from a defensive, whatever defense you play, those are the teams you always worry about. I used to talk to Coach Al McGuire all the time. He says, we just try to find one guy that can't play. We don't guard him, and we guard the other 4 with 5. But they don't have that. They've got everybody that can score.
Down here, we're under 5 minutes to go. Jim?
Coach, just any thoughts in general why there's so many quote-unquote upsets this year?
Yeah, there's just I've said this for a while. There's so many good players. My sons play AAU basketball, so, I go to all these, all summer, all I do is go to AAU basketball games. And I've been going, they're younger, they were younger, and so I'd go when they were in 7th and 8th and 9th and 10th grade, all that, and see all these kids playing. All over the country we would travel, and there's just so many good players. And when we go out recruiting, it's not unusual. I walked into a gym last year and I saw this guy. I said, "Who's this guy? Who's recruiting him?" And they said, "Well, not many schools." I said, "Well, he's good enough to play for Syracuse." And he wasn't like he was an unknown player. He ended up got recruited, and he'll be an all-league player where he's going. But there's just a lot of guys that can play, and it doesn't matter what league you're in or who you are. The top schools, they're going to get their players. They're going to get good players, but there's a lot of other guys that are going to go and get together, and especially when they stay 4 years. If you really, in recruiting, if you didn't get any of the top, say 50 players, 75 players, but you got 10 guys in the next group and they all stayed 4 years, you'd probably be better off. I mean, we're not smart enough to do that, but that you'd almost be able to have a better more consistent program if you did that. And they all, problem is we took a couple guys who were 60 and they both left after 1 year. They were too good. They got too good too fast. But 1 and 2 years. But there's just a lot of good players, and that's good for college basketball. It's bad for coaches because it's all looks like such an upset when you lose, and the coach is always going to get the blame, and that's just the way it is, and it's okay. But I watched Yale play the other day. They didn't look like an upset to me. They played great. I watched, obviously the game here, but watching the last couple days, some of these teams, they're just really, really good teams out there, and there's going to be a lot of those games, a lot of those so-called upsets, I guess. But it's good players. There's a lot of good players, and there's a lot of good coaches. There's a lot of good coaches, really good coaches, I think.
And we are out of time. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you.